Well, the battle over voter ID laws has been heating up over the past several weeks. Courts have been ruling against some of the laws in Texas and North Carolina. But one state where the legislation appears to be working is Indiana, one of several that let voters use affidavits if they don't have a photo ID. So is this a plan for the future? Republican Congressman from the Hoosier State, Todd Rokita, joins us. He led the effort to pass the law in Indiana. He served as the state Secretary of State and was behind this law a decade ago and has argued for it in front of the Supreme Court. Congressman, good to see you.
Hey, Eric, good to be with you. We're celebrating 10 years here in Indiana with this law, and it's working very well.
Why is it working so well? Why is it held up?
Well, first of all, we narrowly tailored it. We took an honest look at it, and we made sure that there were reasonable exceptions put in, and we gave people a bit of a grace period. If they didn't have it, they can sign that affidavit that you talked about, but they still have to come back and produce it at the courthouse within 10 days of the election. So we just made an example of making a very good balance of the situation, so that it does what we pride ourselves here in Indiana, and that is on our Hoosier common sense. There's a lot of it in our law.
Well, some other states don't have that Hoosier common sense, apparently. Let's look at the map of the recent laws that have been overturned and challenged. North Carolina, Texas, Wisconsin, Ohio, South Dakota, Kansas, Pennsylvania a while ago. And you know what the critics say? It suppresses the vote. This is politically motivated. It hurts minorities and the elderly who can't get these IDs. And, can't go to a courthouse or something and get an ID 6 days later.
Well, let's be clear, Eric. I haven't read all those laws in all those states, and I don't judge those states. It seems to me, as I have parsed through a few of the cases, that this is more the result of activist judges, mostly appointed by Democrats, who are reviving this issue again. That's been settled now by the U.S. Supreme Court for 10 years, and it was a 6-3 decision. It wasn't even close when we went to the Supreme Court. So really, I'm getting on the TV with you now as an example of trying to fight back and say, look, these laws are working. You shouldn't read into them any kind of political motivation or intent. You should base it on the actual result. And in Indiana, they have yet to find, those same critics that are in these states have been in Indiana, and those critics have yet to find one legitimate voter who was invalidly disenfranchised at the polls in Indiana. They can't find one. Find a victim, Eric, and that's why they keep losing.
I'll give you another state for you, New Hampshire, and Bill Gardner, who's the legendary, historic, longest-serving Secretary of State in New Hampshire. You know him. I was up in New Hampshire in January, and he's a Democrat, and he supports voter ID. He gave me a call a few weeks ago, Congressman, and he said, look, 2 of the states that have the highest rate of turnout in the primary, they have voter ID. Gardner pointed out that New Hampshire is 52.4%, the highest ever. Wisconsin, 49.4%, a record-breaking turnout, while some states with no ID, New Jersey and New York, they're down in the 20s, 20%. So Mr. Gardner says, it works if you do it right.
That's exactly right. And what you're seeing, though, with the data that you just laid out is that when you give people confidence in the system, when they have that confidence, they'll come out and participate more. And that's exactly what we found in Indiana. They're saying, hey, look, if you're going to at least do those things that are done to me when I go into a store or go get a government benefit or whatever else, we'll participate in the process again. And you're seeing that. It's again, a common sense way. It's 20th century technology, a simple photo. It's the only way, really, Eric, to show that the person standing in front of you at the voting booth is the person on the roll. The only way to do it.
We're up against the clock. Affidavit. That's what they do in New Hampshire. That's what they do in Indiana. That seems to be one of the secrets. Congressman Todd Rokita, thank you for joining us and explaining what's working, as you say, in Indiana.
Thanks, Eric.
Of course.